A democracy allows 51% of the population to control the remaining 49%. In a constitutional republic, a constitution protects an individual from the 51% and from the 49%. So it basically gives an individual the opportunity to sit it out. Now, in the ancient Greece, if you were considered an idiot, that meant that you just basically disconnected from political society. You didn't participate in society at large. Endogenes is a good example of, an ancient Greek who didn't live by the rules of the rest of society. He lived among society, and he was a little bit problematic, and there's a whole other set of lessons that goes along with that. But for the most part, and for the purpose of this exercise, I'm just talking about people being able to sort of live outside of that, the confines of conformity to one side or the other. And I think the founding fathers, when they envisioned America, they envisioned a place where, ultimately they wanted a cooperative society. They needed to fund a government that would manage some courts and basically provide a military that would create, sort of a defense against foreign adversaries. But other than that, the government was kept very small. There weren't a lot of agencies and oversights and committees and all of that stuff. It was basically just a very small military that they envisioned, and then a set of courts to be able to adjudicate civil matters amongst people. And obviously, there's local magistrates and some law enforcement. I think most of that was privately funded or was to be funded by individual townships. But the point being that democracy sort of captivates 51% of the populace as, the arbiters of what's going to be right and what the laws are going to be, and they sort of subjugate the remaining 49%. So constitutional republic allows us to have a safe space, if you will, for those who don't want to participate in either one of those sides. And I think that was originally what was intended. So somebody could say, I'm going to set up my 40 acres and I'm going to take my mule and I'm going to set up a set of boundaries. And even though that piece of land is within the confines of the greater United States, I still have a right to not participate. And over the years, I think since its inception in the 1700s, the United States has increased the taxes on people to the point that we've gotten to now, which is where the tax burden, it always falls on the lowly people. It always falls on the peasantry, and then the hierarchy. And in our case, it's basically a corporate oligarchy who controls things. They need to be dealt with appropriately, which means essentially that there's a great deal of inconvenience and, in a lot of cases, pain and starvation and people freezing, and, well, there's a whole bunch of horrible things that happen. But anyways, I think that just for the brevity of this particular video, that's just kind of what I wanted to get off my chest here, and talk about how we sort of look at America as this social democracy, and that's not what it was originally intended to be. I think sometime during the 20th century, during World War II and the Great Depression and going to World War I in Europe and all of the things that happened that sort of bonded Americans together with a unifying purpose, or I guess unifying purposes. Those things brought us together in a way that we've sort of gotten away from. I don't think that we all have a unified collectivist ideal that we're trying to shoot for anymore. And I think that as much as I applaud that as an individualist, I think that the greater hoi polloi, if you will, needs to follow some sort of pursuit that keeps everyone sort of in alignment with a particular ideal that we can strive for. Without that, I think it's just everybody sort of doing their own thing, living in their own solipsistic world, and that sort of just that leads to chaos, and I don't think that we need more chaos in the world. So I think that there's a misconception that you know a self-interested person or someone who knows that they don't need guidance to live up to good values or to find out, what's best for them and their family. They don't need they don't need someone else telling them that or creating that set of rules. And I think that there are people who can live that way. And I think that, not that society can function without rules. I think that there needs to be rules in place, but I think that there's a lot of things that take place. And it just as a matter of an example, if you're sitting at a red light at 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of a four-way intersection and you can clearly see that there's no other traffic around, why can't you treat that stoplight like a stop sign? You stop, you look both ways, and then you travel on about your way. But the law prohibits that because it is a stoplight for some reason. And so we've sort of let go of the common sense, which tells us, okay, it looks both ways. There's nothing coming. I can, travel on my way. But instead, we sit there like a dummy at 3 o'clock in the morning, waiting for 90 seconds for the light to turn or whatever. And I guess in the case of, safety for everyone else, it's acceptable. But it seems a little ridiculous sometimes. And those are the types of things where I think someone who's of sound mind and can make that rational decision to say, okay, I'm gonna move forward with my vehicle now because I've looked both directions and I can plainly see that there's no other traffic coming and I'm not going to impede anyone or create an accident. So, and I think that's difficult for some people. I think that people like the boundaries, they like the guardrails, they like the rules. I think it gives them a sense that there's somebody in control or something in control, and sort of eases that anxiety. And I go on this great digression here. It's sort of just diarrhea of thought. But I thought it might be interesting experiment to see what happens and just talk a little bit about, like I said, about, why democracy and the constitutional republic is there to protect us from a democracy or to protect us from anti-democracy. It's the constitutional republic basically just gives the rights of the individual precedent. And I think that that's what the Constitution is meant to be. That's what they follow when the judges at the Supreme Court follow the Constitution or they try to set precedents. That's what they're looking for. Does this impede the rights of the individual? Does this put the precedent on the rights of the collective or the commonwealth? Or does this put the rights and the precedents on the individual? And I think always the default should be the individual. I think that that's the way it was set up in America, because I think that there are people who simply don't want to participate. And not wanting to participate also means that you're not welcome to the benefit. You can't say, well, I'm not going to participate, not pay taxes, but I'm also going to send my kids to public school. You can't do that because you're putting a strain on the public system that other people are paying into, but you're not, and you're trying to take the reward for that, but you're not contributing to it. So I think that there has to be a fair balance to that. If you want to homeschool your kids, then I think you should get a tax break for that. And I think that should incentivize people to teach their children at home. And I think that, because then you're sort of more guaranteed and more, first of all, it's just healthier. It's healthier for the child. It's healthier for the parents. Everybody gets along better. The whole idea of the compulsory education system in the United States was initially designed by people who wanted to create a manufacturing plant to create future employees for a corporate capitalist society. And that's it's written. There were people who were involved in this. Horace Mann. I'm trying to think now off the top of my head. It's difficult sometimes, but Horace Mann was one of the people who was involved in that. And so I think by the late, after the Civil War, a lot of things started to happen in America where they really started to erode the fabric of that, the rights of the individual in um, in deference to the rights of the collective, I guess. And now we're at a point where they're trying to ban TikTok because they think that it's under the guise of it being a national security threat. And but at the same time, there's about a million other apps out there that people could be using that all have access to bank account information and photographs and videos and all kinds of technical information and where you work, and there's all kinds of that stuff going on. So I think it's important that we pay attention to this and you know see what's happening here with this erosion to our rights, because um, I think it's going to take a matter of a short period of time, and it doesn't take long once they censor free speech, and you can't speak out about anything. It's a lot harder to get the information out there. It's a lot harder to get people to listen because they can't listen. They don't have access to the information. And I think that that's going to be one of the new commodities of the world. I think that's going to be something to um, think about for the future, is that we have to think about information as being a new form of currency almost, or a new commodity that's I hate to say it, but it's going to be fought over. So anyways, I've rambled on long enough, and thanks for listening.